Hello and welcome back. This is section 4, collections and publications. In this section, we're going to define a collection, force the server-side operations, and we're going to talk about the hooks, the helpers, and the relationships for a collection. In this video, defining a collection, we're going to start out by defining the collection, but then we're going to add a publication and subscription to the collection so that we can list our categories on the sidebar. We're going to start by creating a file for each collection. We'll start with the cart.js file. And then inside of that, we're going to say that cart is equal to a new Mongo collection. And then we're going to pass in cart. And we distinguish Mongo because other databases will soon be available. So let's create another one for products. And we're going to say that product equals new Mongo collection product. Then we'll create another one for category. So we'll make this category.js. And inside of that, we're going to say that category is equal to new Mongo collection and category. Great. So now we have 3 collections for our application, but we're not done yet. There's still more to do. You see, Meteor uses something called auto-publish to automatically publish out all of your collections all the time. And that is a relatively insecure policy. So they do that for you to get started with ease. However, removing that will make the application more secure. And once you've removed the auto-publish, now you need to define a publication for each table or collection that you'd like to have access to in your application. So let's start with the cart. We're going to type in meteor.publish cart, and then in the callback function, we'll just put a query to say, return, and then put cart.find. Now we're going to find all to begin with, but later we can put criteria in here to make sure that the publication is only returning those things that should be returned. So we'll create another one of these for category, and we're just going to say category.js here, and then inside, again, we'll put Meteor publish, and we'll put the name of the collection, or in this case, the name of the publication. So we're going to say category is the name of our publication, and its callback function should return a category.find, which will basically get us all of the categories. And we have one more to do, which is the product. So we'll go ahead and create a product.js file here in our publications folder. And we're going to say meteor.publish, and we'll place in there the product. And in the callback function, we'll say return product.find. And again, that's going to return all of the products. Obviously, we'll be able to narrow the criteria a little bit later. There's still one more thing that we need, which is the permissions. And they use something called allow and deny, which basically we're going to create a permissions file for category, for example. And then inside of here, we can say category allow, and you basically tell it how to respond to insert commands, delete commands, and update commands. So you're effectively saying, when someone asks to insert, check that there's a user ID, for example. And so you would just say return user ID. And if there is a user ID, it would return true. If there isn't, then it would return false. So it would allow if they have their user ID and they're logged in, and it would not allow if they're not. Now, the next thing that we want to do is go into our sidebar, and here we want to list the categories. And instead of just putting them statically like we did before, notice we're putting an each bracket around the first category, and you define that with a pound each and then the name of the category or the collection. So then inside of each li element, we're going to replace the static information with the dynamic name, which will pull that out of the category as it finds them. So the next thing we're going to do is create a JavaScript file for the sidebar, and inside of there we're going to define our first helper. And that helper is going to be the categories. So we're going to say that the categories is the helper, and the callback function is to return category.find. Now, keep in mind, we just did this in the publication. However, all that's doing is telling what the server should return. This is telling what of the things that are returned should be displayed to the user. So that's hard to get your head around, but we'll cover it a little bit more as we go. So basically, the next thing we want to do is in every place that we need to list categories, we need to put a subscription to that publication. Because otherwise, if we're not subscribed, it's not going to run the publication query, and we won't even have a starting set to query from. So here we're going to say Meteor subscribe to category, and then that will make sure that we have all of our categories when we're calling out to list them. So we see here that we have fruity and we have hearts. So those are being pulled from the database. You know, we didn't type in fruity and heart in the sidebar. So that's getting pulled out of the collection using publish, subscribe, and a categories collection. Now, before we move on, we know that there are other routes which require the categories. So we can go ahead and put those in, like the category name. You know, we still want that sidebar there when we're navigating the categories. So we should put it in there as well. Now we're subscribed in every route that needs it. Excellent work. So remember, we defined all of our collections, created a publication and a subscription, and then we listed our categories in the sidebar. Let's go to our next video, which is forcing server-side operations.